All right, and welcome to Making Law Simple. My name is David Helm. I am a licensed practicing attorney in the state of Michigan. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the situation Nick Rekieta finds himself in. Now, I'm not going to be pontificating about constitutional issues because in reality, they have no role to really play. I'm not a constitutional attorney. I am a criminal defense attorney. And while I'm not licensed in Minnesota, I am licensed and I practice quite a bit of criminal defense work in Michigan. And what I intend to do here today is to kind of look at this as if a client came to me in the very situation Nick Rekieta finds himself in, and what I would advise this client to do, what I would expect the courts to do in return, and hopefully what I would expect the end result would be in this situation. I know the affidavit for the warrant has been released, and I have it. I've been looking at it. I haven't read it entirely. We're gonna take a look at that. But there are two cases here that are going on, and I think the vast majority of people talking about this are missing the second one, which, in my opinion, is the most important one. And that's what I want to emphasize today. Because we could talk all we want about the criminal charges uh, facing Nick, but we have a real serious child protective proceedings that are going to be taking place with this as well. And those, if a client came to me with this exact situation, I would say this is going to be the more important one. Yes, the criminal case, we're going to deal with that, but they're going to go hand in hand. If you screw up, though, it's going to be worse on the child protective proceedings than the criminal case. So let's talk about that. And first, we're going to take a look at the affidavit, just to give a little bit of context and a little bit of background. And this is what I would be doing too. If a client came to me, I'd say, all right, first thing I want to look at, I want to look at the affidavit for the search warrant. I want to look at the police report. I want to look at the allegations actually being brought against you on paper, black and white, what the witnesses had to say, who the witnesses are, and start weeding out exactly what sort of situation we're dealing with here. So, Zach, this is the one and only time I'm pulling up your chat. Welcome, sir. I am early. And welcome everybody in the chat. And again, I'm the in the trenches criminal defense attorneys that are dealing with these sort of situations. They deal with them every single day. The courts deal with hundreds of them a day. This is not any more special than any other case. Just happens to be Nick Rekieta. We could talk about the constitutionality of this search warrant. It's there. This is probable cause, right? They're using hearsay statements based off of people that claim to have personal knowledge. This is enough. The search was proper. Now, if the search yielded no results, we'd have a completely different story. But it yielded results, allegedly, right? So, going through this affidavit, this is the case background. I skipped a bunch of it. If you guys want to see it, it is in my Discord. See, and it's all over Twitter and everyone's posting it, so you can see it. I did go through it and redact some names and addresses and dates of birth and things like that, just so we don't dox anyone. But it was recorded. It was reported. Nicholas is a social media blogger. He and his wife had befriended a host of a different local social media blogger. That would be Aaron and April. I didn't realize that. Again, I'm not watching Rekieta that much. I've been on his channel a couple of times. I know of him. I've watched him in the past. I didn't know about any of this stuff until last week. But what's most concerning here is in recent years, the show has been social media entertainment show strictly based online. It was reported that the Aaron and April may have been staying with the Rekietas and that the home was in disarray. All right. So as I'm first reading this, I'm looking at disarray. We're going to have a witness that's going to testify that the home is in disarray and cluttered. It was reported from a church preschool teacher that the children had complained of being hungry, not being fed, and wearing the same clothes for 3 to 4 days at a time, and would start to smell. So Nicholas was reported to being lethargic and appeared high or drugged, driving a car around. Again, whether this is true or not, these are the allegations that we're going to have to defend against. Another individual advised the reported that Nicholas, all right, will walk up randomly during sermons at church and have noticed behavioral changes in him. It was alleged Kayla looks anorexic and Nicholas has lost a substantial amount of weight. One individual described Nicholas as having injections or track marks on his arms. That, I don't know, test him, see what it is, right? So you test your client, you see, does he have heroin or some other drug that you would inject? Um, Take a look at his arms, things like that. I mean, those could be anything. So, not very concerned about that. The house being cluttered, the kids being dirty, the kids complaining about not being fed. Those are big things that are going to bring in child protective services. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, what that actually means. Hey, Wendy H., thank you. Let's see. Started reviewing Rekieta's and Aaron's. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm just going to call it Aaron's social media blogs. By the way, the number one rule is you don't talk about anything ever to anyone. And these guys, both of them, put out a lot of stuff on social media. That's a bad thing. And so the first thing I would tell my client is get off social media. Don't go on the internet at all. Don't send an email. You don't talk to anyone about anything ever, even your wife, because your wife is a co-defendant whose interests are different than yours. So if it comes to saving her relationship with the kids, she could throw you under the bus, sir. So you don't talk to anyone about anything ever, not even your wife, not your family. You know, we need to, I know you need support for the drug issues that's coming up, but you don't talk to people about anything specific. Nicholas is known to drink alcoholic beverages excessively in his videos. Well, we've all noticed that. I immediately noticed that Nicholas's appearance in recent months has changed in videos from January 2024 compared with May 2024. Oh, okay. I was confused by the timeline there. Nick appears to have lost weight, appears tired, and overall appears strung out. Common with controlled substance users. Now, the common with controlled substance users, the officer, the affiant in this case, goes on and on about his history and experience with drug use and things like that. So he's giving a foundation for that. But I think that's more or less sort of common understanding. Again, this isn't going to be anything that's going to get this thrown out. I'm looking at this. Maybe I'll raise the issue of insufficient warrant for the purposes of appeals, but I'm not going to be arguing this in court. I'll bring it up and say that the warrant is, did not substantiate probable cause, therefore it needs to be thrown out. Everything that was collected as a result of the warrant needs to be tossed. Okay, they're still in the system. They still have kids going up to the church preschool teacher saying, "I'm hungry, dad's not feeding me," and are stinking and wearing old clothes. So even if you throw that out, you still have this situation, right? And you still have, by the way, 26 grams of cocaine. I don't know if this is going to get me yeeted from YouTube or not. I'll keep myself small. This is sugar. I measured out 26 just to kind of get a comparison because I like to have a real world example. This is just a small little baggie. This is what it is. It's not as much as I thought it was, but it's still kind of a hefty amount. This is apparently the amount that they found in the Rekieta's home. So say you toss this, right? Because this is the big thing you found in the search warrant. Say you toss this out. You still have tons of other evidence that I'm reading in black and white from third parties that weren't there conducting the search that are going to be used against them. So why the preschool teacher and not the actual teacher? Well, this is in church. So this is a church preschool teacher. Most churches, Sunday school, kids are all around. Maybe a preschool teacher ran into one of the kids and said, "Hey, what's going on?" That sort of thing. It's a church activity. Again, I'm not going to be throwing out conspiracies or anything like that. This is the reality that we're going to face here. We have a preschool teacher that's going to say these things about this child. We have a neighbor, former friend, who's going to say these things about his house. We have a neighbor, former friend, who's going to say these things about the drugs that they use together. So he's been a victim of swatting phone calls and is known to your affiant and the sheriff's office because of these calls. Let's see here. While reviewing Aaron's social media vlogs, Aaron recently indicated that he and April were getting a divorce. Aaron goes on to say that he had experimented with cocaine 3 times, Molly 6 or 7 times in the past recently. So he's saying all these things online. Even if Aaron is going to sit up there on the stand and say, no, that never happened. It's online. It's on YouTube. It's preserved. Presumably, this guy also made a statement to police ahead of time as well. That's going to be preserved. So at the end of the day, whatever you want to say about, I'm not going to go through it all, but at the end of the day, whatever you want to say about this warrant affidavit, he's going to be facing these charges. They're not going to go away. So raise the issue if you want for appellate purposes. But now let's move on to the reality of the situation, which is you, sir, are going to be convicted of a drug offense and maybe worse. Child neglect is not a good thing. So, because what it's going to do is it's going to end up with child services. Now, what we have in Michigan is a stepped proceedings for child protective services. If CPS in Michigan, I don't know exactly what it's called in Minnesota, gets involved and they substantiate a complaint, meaning that there's probable cause that abuse or neglect is going on, or both, then what they will do is they will remove the children and initiate a court proceeding for services. Now, I looked up the Minnesota proceedings and it's exactly the same. So when I talk about this stuff, it seems like it's going to move along exactly the same way. And you can find this stuff. It's available online through the Minnesota state website and stuff. They call it CHIPS in Minnesota. But essentially what it is the court's going to identify that the parents suffer from a problem. It's very common for parents involved in the system to have drug and alcohol addiction problems. And what they're going to do is get these parents services. They're going to get them drug and alcohol treatment, family counseling. The family counseling might involve the children. If they're old enough, it might not. It might just be personal counseling. And they're going to have to test regularly. This is outside the criminal system. And they're going to have review hearings, usually like 30-day review hearings. You're going to be in and out of court to say, look, I'm getting better. Look, I'm clean. Look, I'm testing negative. Look, I'm going to NA daily, whatever it is, until the court is satisfied that the kids can be placed back with you. Now, you will get potentially visits with the kids. Usually they'll start off as supervised visits where you have an independent third party agent for the court overseeing your interactions, watching your interactions. And they will be noting any conversations you have as well with the kids. But the idea is the state doesn't want to take the kids from you. The state would rather you get the help you need and the kids go back with you. Now, this service could take 6 months. It could take 2 years, depending on the progress, the setbacks, the kids. Every case is treated differently. But this could be a 2-year length process, or 6 months, but probably not 6 months. But at the end of the day, the goal of this process is to reunite the family, reunite the kids back with the family. Now, in the interim, the children are usually with family, extended family, grandparents, cousins, aunts, things like that. Maybe they're the ones doing the supervised parenting time. Maybe it's a court official, but somebody is supervising them and reporting back to the court. Now, if they continue to screw up, if the parents continue to screw up, testing dirty, missing tests, not participating in the parenting time or the visits that are set up for them, then it could lead to a parental termination case. Now, it might be a little different in Michigan versus Minnesota, but the prosecutor would actually bring charges against the parents to terminate their parental rights. You have the right to a jury trial. You have the right to call evidence. But if you can't keep it together when you're being supervised by the court, it's highly unlikely that you're going to be successful in the termination proceedings. So this is the biggest thing. And this is why I say like Nick can't screw up here. He must maintain his sobriety. And this might be the biggest motivating factor for him, in that he's not going to have access to his kids. Now, this is a secondary case, and this is all going to be private. You're generally, at least in Michigan, you're never going to get access to these documents. You're not going to know what the reports say, unless Nick brings them out, I guess, which he shouldn't. But you're never going to get access to these reports. You're never going to get access to these proceedings. You're never going to see them. But this is one of the most important things. And it goes hand in hand with the criminal case, meaning if he violates the terms and conditions of his bond, he's most likely going to be violating the terms and conditions of these services that the family law division of the court is going to be offering him. So he really needs to stay clean, and he needs to get the help that he needs. And if he was walking into my office, or anyone walking into my office with this specific scenario, what I would tell them first is you got to stay off the internet. You're not going to talk to anyone about anything ever, but you're going to go to NA, and you're going to go daily. You're going to go to daily NA. You're going to get your logs filled out. You're going to get someone else assigned that you were there. You're going to get a sponsor. You're going to go to counseling, therapy outside of NA, someone who specializes in addiction and recovery from addiction, one that understands that 85% of addicts relapse, right? You're going to do all this stuff before the court even tells you that you should be doing it. And you're going to do all this because you're going to recognize that you need help. And that's going to be that's going to set you up for taking advantages of all the services that the court is going to be able to offer you. The court in both the criminal matter as well as the family law parental services matter. There it goes. Okay. So Wisconsin, much like Michigan, does have treatment courts. There's a variety of courts, treatment courts that Wisconsin has, much like Michigan. So you have your DUI drinking courts, you have your drug addiction courts, you have your veterans courts. A lot of veterans suffer from PTSD and self-medicate. So they have these various court systems set up in Minnesota. Did I say Wisconsin? In Minnesota, just like Michigan. And he needs to take full advantage of this. Now, going through this website, this is, by the way, Minnesota Judicial Branch website. It is not available in his county. So these courts are not available in his county. But that's not the end result. I've had it in Michigan where counties don't have specific drug treatment courts in the county in which my client's charged. It doesn't mean that probation won't work with you, meaning they can offer you similar or substantially similar program, even though they don't have an official drug court, or you can actually move jurisdictions for the purposes of probation so you can attend these treatment courts. And so here's the type of courts: adult drug court. This would be the ideal for him, right? We have an adult drug court available. It's available in Minnesota. I don't know which county is closest to him. There's 21 counties that handle this. His county specifically doesn't, probably because it's a really small county, but they could farm it out. And another county's probation department could agree to take his case on and then report back to the judge in the county in which he's being charged. That happens often. And again, despite what talking heads out there might have you believe, the courts want you better. The courts do not want to see continuous relapses and the same defendant in the system constantly. The courts actually do want you to approve. If you look at this first page here, treatment courts are the single most successful intervention in our nation's history and leading people living a substantial use of blah, 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 blah. They're calling it a success because it is. It has a great recovery rate compared to other programs. You're stuck in the system. You might as well take advantage of it. The courts want you to use the system. So even though it's not available in your county, we can make arrangements. We can talk to probation and see if they'd be willing to implement a similar system or allow you to transfer your probation to a neighboring county that actually has it. So that's the second thing that I would be working on. The firearm charge, gone. Those guns are gone. Forget about them. They're not important. Your freedom, your future, and your kids' future are what's important. Forget about the stupid guns. Go buy more guns later if you want to or whatever. But let's deal with this, your kids and your sobriety. So that's exactly what I would be telling him if he was my client. And there are, that's why I wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure that there were actually programs similar to the ones in Michigan that I use, and there are. So there's plenty of opportunity. My original prediction is that the drug charges are going to be reduced to some sort of treatment program like this, where he's going to get probation. He's not going to get jail. It's not going to happen. I mean, unless he really screws up. But he has the opportunity to not have jail, to go through a program similar to this, get clean, and he'll get visitation with his kids during the pendency of the CHIPS program, I guess is what it's called. Let me pull it back up here. Make sure I'm calling it right. Yeah, so the CHIPS program, he'll get visitation through the CHIPS program so long as he maintains his treatment program. And then eventually everyone will be restored. The kids will be restored back to both of them. It could be a situation, and this is why he shouldn't be representing his wife, why that can't stand, and why he shouldn't be talking to his wife, because it could be a situation where he recovers and he's doing great in this program, but his wife's not, or vice versa. At that point, then he might get his kids back if he's doing good, if his wife moves out, or vice versa, right? The wife, Kayla is her name, she could be doing well, and he could not be doing well. Well, the kids could move back in with her if he moves out. So you don't want to be in a position where you're either giving the other side an opportunity to kind of undermine you, or advising. He can't. It's nonsense that he's going to represent her. He's not going to represent her. I don't even go down that road. So anyway, so again, I'm trying to approach this as if he was my client. And you're going to NA every single freaking day. You're done with the drugs. You're getting rid of them. I understand people relapse and things like that. We'll take it as it happens. Forget about the guns. Don't talk to anybody. Stay off the internet. It's 5 things that you need to do. And work with Child Protective Services. Get that visitation set up. Figure out if you're allowed to send them emails, if you're allowed to send the kids letters. Let them know you are there for them. Apologize to them. You don't have to apologize like, I'm a horrible father, I was doing drugs, but apologize. I'm sorry we're in this situation. Don't worry. Dad's got it under control. You're going to be back here soon. Communicate with them. Don't let them know that you've abandoned them. And if you're allowed to, right? You need to go through Child Protective Services and make sure that communication is allowed. And start doing what you got to do, man. I don't know how else to say it. You got to cowboy up. You've got to do what you've got to do. Forget about what everyone's saying online. Who gives a fuck? It's not about them. It's about you and your family. So focus on that. Stay off the internet. Unplug if you need to, right? Get off, unplug the Wi-Fi, get off of it. Ignore it. Focus on you. Focus on what you're learning in NA, and practice those treatment programs. And this is what's going to save him. This is what's going to allow him to have a second act, a recovery. And yeah, so that's essentially it. I've been going for 24 minutes. This is the lecture I would be giving a client, more or less, if they came in. Now, obviously, I'd have a lot of questions for the client too, and which I really can't ask a Nick about. But this was essentially be the advice. And what I would hope is that within a year, they're done with recovery. They've got the kids back in the home, and he's doing well on the treatment through the criminal proceedings, and he's able to then make a full recovery. He might still have a conviction, but maybe you complete it down to the misdemeanor, right? This is his first offense. Yes, this is apparently a lot, enough to get you a felony, but maybe we can make a deal. You've already taken the initiative. You've gone to NA. You've done all this stuff. You've been clean. You haven't tested positive once since we started this bond proceedings. And this is all before your next appearance in court in August. You've done all of this. You've taken the initiative. You know what? We might be willing to do away with the felony. We'll get you a misdemeanor. Now you no longer have a felony. This is what you need to do. Attorneys are not miracle workers, right? We're parachutes. We're not going to get you back into the airplane. We're going to make the landing as soft as possible. And if you follow this advice, the landing is going to be nice and smooth. You're still not in the plane. Too bad. There's nothing we can do about that. But it's going to be a nice, smooth landing, and you're going to be able to recover from this and go on and do whatever you need to do. So that's my rant. I hope you guys enjoyed it. They brought the... Sorry, I was completely ignoring the chat because I wanted to get through my thoughts. And I didn't want to get distracted by Justin and Wendy and everyone else. This is sugar, by the way, folks. But there is a path out of this for Nick. And if he follows appropriate advice, not advice about arguing the constitutionality of the warrant and they shouldn't have seized my guns and the guns aren't even really a crime, Second Amendment protects all that, it doesn't matter. None of that matters in the moment. When you are facing these sort of charges, none of that matters. Give up the guns. Give up the fight. Face the real issues and just deal with them. All right. Now I'm off to go golf. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry I ignored the chat so much, but hope you guys understand. And I will see you on the next one.
When I was young, my daddy said